In the sprawling lunar metropolis of Artemis City, 21 and 85, Dr. Zara Chen stood before the quantum computer, her dark eyes fixed on the swirling holographic display. At 32, she was the youngest lead researcher at the Temporal Dynamics Institute, dedicated to unlocking the mysteries of time itself. "Running final diagnostics now, Kai," she called over her shoulder. Dr. Kai Anderson looked up from his workstation, a smile tugging at his lips. "You said that an hour ago, Zara. At some point, we have to actually start the experiment." Zara rolled her eyes, but there was no real annoyance behind it. Kai had been her best friend since their undergrad days at MIT Luna, and he knew her perfectionist tendencies all too well. "One more check won't hurt," she insisted. "We're talking about sending a quantum particle back in time. Even a microscopic error could cause a cascading temporal paradox that unravels the fabric of space-time." Kai finished, his voice a perfect mimicry of Zara's serious tone. He stood, stretching his tall frame, and walked over to her. I know, but we've triple-checked everything. It's time." Zara bit her lip, studying Kai's face. His blue eyes were bright with excitement, a stray lock of blonde hair falling across his forehead. For a moment, she felt the familiar flutter in her chest, the one she'd been stubbornly ignoring for years. "All right," she conceded. "Let's make history." They took their positions at the quantum interface, fingers flying over holographic controls. The air crackled with anticipation as the machine hummed to life. "Initiating temporal field," Kai announced. "Particle isolated and primed for transit," Zara added. A beam of light shot from the emitter, striking a suspended diamond lattice. For a breathless moment, nothing happened. Then, with a flash that seared their retinas even through protective goggles, the particle vanished. Alarms blared. The holographic displays erupted with data. "It worked!" Zara shouted over the noise. "We did it, Kai, we." Her words cut off as the floor beneath them shuddered. Cracks spiderwebbed across the lab's reinforced walls. "Zara!" Kai yelled, reaching for her as the room began to tilt. Their hands met, fingers interlocking as they had countless times before. But this time, a surge of energy coursed through them. The world around them blurred, stretched, then vanished in a blinding flash. When Zara's vision cleared, she found herself standing in a lush green field. The air was thick with the scent of wildflowers and the distant tang of the sea. "Kai?" she called, panic rising in her throat. "I'm here," he answered, his hand still gripping hers tightly. "But where is here? And when?" Before Zara could answer, a familiar voice called out, "You two are early." They turned to see themselves, older versions, perhaps in their 50s, walking toward them across the field. "Welcome to New Earth," the older Kai said with a grin. "Circa 2215. "This is impossible," Zara breathed. Her older self laughed. "You'd think we'd know better than to use that word by now. Come on, we have a lot to talk about." Over the next few hours, as they sat in a cozy cottage overlooking a sparkling sea, their older selves explained. The quantum experiment had indeed worked, but not in the way they'd expected. Instead of sending a particle back in time, they'd created a bridge across parallel timelines. "In our timeline," the older Zara explained, "the experiment failed catastrophically. We were thrown 30 years into the future, to this colony world. We had to rebuild our lives, our research, everything. But we did it together," the older Kai added, taking his Zara's hand with a tenderness that made the younger pair glance at each other, then quickly look away. As night fell, the older couple showed them to a guest room. "Get some rest," they advised. "Tomorrow we'll start working on getting you home." Alone in the room, Zara and Kai stood in awkward silence. "So," Kai finally said, "married, huh? To each other." Zara nodded, her mind racing. "Kai, I don't," he interrupted gently. "We don't have to talk about it. We can just focus on getting home and pretend this never happened." Zara felt her heart sink. "Is that what you want?" Kai ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made Zara's chest ache. I don't know. I've spent so long convincing myself that you only saw me as a friend, that anything more would ruin what we have." "And now?" Zara asked, taking a step closer. Kai's eyes met hers, filled with a mixture of fear and hope. "Now I'm wondering if we've both been idiots." Zara laughed, the tension breaking. "Certified geniuses, and we couldn't figure this out?" "Well," Kai said, his voice low as he closed the distance between them, "maybe we need to apply the scientific method. Form a hypothesis, test it." Gathered data? Zara murmured, her hands coming to rest on his chest. Exactly, Kai breathed, and then he was kissing her. It was nothing like Zara had imagined, and oh, how she had imagined. It was better. Kai's lips were soft, his arms strong around her waist. She felt like she was falling and flying at the same time. When they finally parted, both breathless, Kai rested his forehead against hers. I think, he said with a grin, we might need to run a few more trials, to be thorough. Zara laughed, joy bubbling up inside her. For science, she agreed, pulling him in for another kiss. The next morning, they found their older selves in the cottage's lab, already hard at work. Sleep well? The older Zara asked, a knowing twinkle in her eye. The younger pair blushed but nodded, hands clasped tightly together. Good, the older Kai said. Because we've got work to do, we think we can get you back to your own time and universe, but it's going to take some doing. For the next week, they worked tirelessly, 4 brilliant minds focused on bending the laws of physics. In the evenings, the older couple shared stories of their life on New Earth, the challenges they'd faced and overcome together. It wasn't easy, the older Zara admitted one night, but I wouldn't change it for anything. Her Kai kissed her cheek. Me neither, love. The younger Zara and Kai exchanged glances, a silent promise passing between them. Whatever happened, they'd face it together. Finally, on the 8th day, they stood before a shimmering portal of energy. This should take you back to the exact moment you left, the older Kai explained. You'll have a chance to stabilize the experiment, prevent the accident that sent us here. But, the older Zara added, you might want to let it fail just a little, enough to give you a push in the right direction. She winked at her younger self. As Zara and Kai prepared to step through the portal, their older selves held up a hand. One last thing, the older Kai said. A gift to remember us by. He handed them a small, ornate box. Inside was a crystal, pulsing with soft light. It's a quantum-entangled chronometer, the older Zara explained. It'll help you navigate the tricky parts of temporal mechanics in your research. And, her Kai added with a smile, it'll remind you that sometimes the best discoveries happen by accident. With tearful goodbyes and promises to make the most of their second chance, Zara and Kai stepped into the portal. There was a moment of vertigo, a sensation of falling through endless light, and then they were back in the lab, alarms blaring, cracks spreading across the walls. But this time, they knew what to do. Working in perfect sync, they stabilized the temporal field, allowing the experiment to complete without catastrophic failure. As the alarms fell silent and the holographic displays showed a successful result, they turned to each other. We did it, Zara breathed. Kai nodded, pulling her close. We sure did. And I think this is just the beginning. As they kissed, the quantum-entangled chronometer pulsed in Zara's pocket, a reminder of the future they'd glimpsed and the love they'd found across time and space. In the days that followed, as they wrote up their groundbreaking paper and fielded calls from astonished colleagues, Zara and Kai's relationship blossomed. They approached it with the same passion and curiosity they brought to their research, discovering new depths to their connection every day. And if sometimes, late at night, they wondered about that other timeline, that other life on a distant world, well, they had the rest of their lives to explore all the possibilities that lay ahead. After all, in matters of the heart as in science, the journey of discovery never truly ends.